Hey everyone, this is Don Ward with Third Creative, thirdcreative.com. We're going to take a quick look at my newest template, Coyotes Multisport 2019. It's ready to hit the stores right now. And as always, I like to take a quick walkthrough, show you the ins, show you the outs, show you how everything works, and that way you can get the most out of this design. And this design, like most of mine, will work for pretty much anything. You name it: soccer, band, wrestling, martial arts, football, hockey, basketball, volleyball. I mean, I can keep going. You get the idea. You get the point. We're going to stick with our 5-file bundle. You'll get the 1:3 ratio panoramic that you see here at the bottom left, and that's actually a 12:36 inch file at 300 dpi, and you'll continue to get two other horizontal files and two vertical files. And I'll go ahead and give you a 2:3 ratio for both horizontal and vertical. It's great for banners, but we'll also continue to offer the 16:20s in the vertical and horizontal, and that's great for your standard prints. You can crop down, 5:7s, 4:6, 11:14s, wallets. You can get it all out of the same design and save you some time of not having to customize several of these things. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we are going to be working with the 16:24 vertical, and everything is pretty much set up exactly the same regardless of which file you're using, whether it's horizontal or vertical. It's pretty much all the same. Everything that we go over today will apply regardless of which one you're using. And there's a lot of ins and outs to this thing, so it might be a little thorough, but I want to make sure that everyone knows all of the possibilities, and that you can really get the most out of this thing. So I've decided that I want to use a football sample image today. We're going to drop Isaiah into our template and just get this thing rolling. So let's close that out here. All right, so I've dropped Isaiah here into the subject folder. It's pretty straightforward. We'll turn this other sample image off, and let's get him sized up here. He's actually already sized up. Just got to get him in the right position, and we'll get this thing rocking. All right, let's start with the background. And to look at the background, I think I want to go ahead and just turn the subject folder off so we can see what's going on. Let's open this thing up. Let's start all the way at the bottom. And the bottom is this concrete metal-like texture that you see in the very back. And it's set to black and white, and we can change the color using this color overlay. And I tried to stay away from hue/saturation sliders on this one. So pretty much everything is either going to be a color overlay like you see here in the bottom right corner, or a lot of the text and some of the things are controlled with gradients. And I'll try to always just hit on that real quick, not get too in-depth, but just in case you guys, any of you, aren't real familiar with gradients, you can see how to do that. So let's go ahead and play around with this. Let's double click on this change background color layer and show you how this works. You can go all over the place. You can do a very saturated dark color, or you can do a very light, hardly saturated at all. And if you want to keep it black and white, you can control how dark it is. Just stay on this left side of our color picker box here. You can go super dark, or you can come up here and you can go much lighter. So you can kind of see how that works. I think for this, we're going to go with a red background. So I'm going to come all the way up here and play around with this and See what looks good. That might be a little too much. Let's see. Let's try. Let's just leave that. And once we get everything how we want it, we can come back and tweak that if we want to. But first step, changing the background color, we've got that done. Okay, so after I made this video and I was making some more sample images, I realized I needed to change something or add something. I ran into an obstacle, and unfortunately I didn't catch it before I made this video, so I'm just going to cover it now and just cram it in where it fits best into this video. So I'm sure it's not smooth, but we need to cover it. It has to do with this background layer, and I was making a sample image. I'll go ahead and show it to you. I wanted a very bright and heavily saturated yellow color for the background. And what I was running into is using this color overlay. Go to the color range that I wanted. And to get the lightest but most saturated color, I would come to this very top right corner. And when I do that, as you can see, it's still very dark and moody, and wasn't the look that I want. I'm going to go ahead and keep that. But the way that we work around this is going to be a levels adjustment layer. There's probably several ways I could do it. I could do exposure, or I could do a hue saturation, which has brightness and darkness. But I like to use levels, and if you're not familiar with them, I'll give you a quick overview. It's a lot like curves, but if you use this left marker here, it controls all your darks. So if I drag that a little bit, you'll see it's going to boost all the darks. That's not the look that I want. So if I can get it to cooperate and go back here. There we go. Now, the opposite. If you want to control all the lights, you can boost them by dragging the right marker in. And so you start to see the effect that I'm looking for, but still not quite right. So it all depends on what you're looking for, but there's a few things you can do here. This middle one is going to be your midtones. So it's not your super darks or your super lights, just kind of everything in between, kind of like similar to shadows. If you move this to the right, it will darken these midtones. If you move this to the left, it will brighten them up. And that's what I ended up doing for that image that I showed you. So I'm going to keep moving it. Now, I wanted these darks to show less. I didn't want them to be so prominent. So this down here, whoops, this is where you can decrease your lights or your darks, and I want to decrease my darks a little bit, so I drag this to the right, and that even brightens it up even more. So when you do that, you might have to come back and adjust this a little bit, since that's a little brighter than I want. But anyways, I won't bother tweaking it all the way. That's pretty much where I ended up. Close enough. So anyways, if you run into a situation where you need to brighten it up, just jump into that levels adjustment. It'll be in all 5 files, and it'll get you taken care of. Okay, so back to wherever we were. All right, so the next thing we have here, there's 2 folders that kind of work together. We've got this labeled or entitled horizontal bars. So if you look in the middle and you see these, for lack of a better word, I'm calling them bars, but you can control the inner color with this next set here. So if you see how it's kind of darker, if I turn that off, it will just match. Well, actually, you'll see the black. Let me turn it back on and just double click and kind of give you an idea. This is nothing we would ever do, but I'm going to go ahead and just make it yellow, which it's on color overlay. So it's basically going to give you an option to control how light or dark you want this to be. So if we come way down here, you can see it'll get much darker, way too dark. More than likely, you probably will leave that alone, but it's an option there if you want to play with it to make them lighter or darker. I'm going to hit cancel on that. If you come up to this next folder, these, here we go, glow border around the bars, and this is optional. So I say it's optional. You can turn it off. If you turn it off, you see it gives you this cool chiseled look. Looks like it's an indentation. It's darker, and you see this drop shadow here. If you do turn it on, you can control the color of the glow using this color overlay. So let's open that up. I think, let's just see what it looks like if we keep that red also. Let's just leave it like that for now. I did not pre-plan this, just feeling it out as we go. This next folder is what I'm calling glow lines. So these are these diagonal lines that come in from the sides. And you can control the color of that independently with this color overlay. I know that I want these to be white, but we could make them anything that we want. We could do green. It's not Christmas, at least not yet. So we're going to get rid of that green. I want white. And I could go lighter or brighter, you know, just moving up and down. The higher you go, the brighter it will be. The more to the right you are, the more saturated it will be. So that's looking cool. Let's commit that. All right, we've got two more layers here. You probably just leave those alone. This is a bottom highlight. You'll see it's kind of looks a little lighter here at the very bottom, and then this is the top light source, which gives us this light up here. If we turn that off, you'll see it'll darken it up quite a bit. Two layers you probably will just leave as they are. All right, so now we've got our background set. We'll see if we decide we want to make any other changes. All right, so top text layers, we can go ahead and do that now. This is important. I have these set to soft light, and that's why, let me see if this thing will let me zoom in and look at it a little closer. That's why you can see this same texture. It kind of gives that chiseled look. Problem is, it's not going to stand out. It's not going to be real bold. So if you want something that's bold, then you will probably need to change the blend mode from soft light to normal. And I think I want this to stand out a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I like that white. Let's do the same thing with the class. Come up here, change it from soft light to normal. Now, if you want to change the color of either of these, it's real simple. You would just use your character panel here, or again, you can always double click here to highlight it, and you get your color option up here at the top. And that's all there is to that folder. You can change any color you want. You can leave it on soft light to have that chiseled look, or you can put it on normal so that you have something that pops a little bit more. All right, let's do this. Let's get it back how we had it. All right, I am going to change the name, and let's see, Isaiah Johnson. All right, so here's another good tip. A lot of you already know this, some of you won't, but you can obviously change the size of this font to make it bigger or smaller. But if you want this to fill up more space, or let's say you have a really long name and it starts to overlap these lines and you lose part of the name, it just doesn't look right. I always keep my character panel up, and I always use this right here to control the amount of space that's in between. So if I wanted this wider, but I didn't want to make the text bigger, I could just increase this number. Let's punch in 600, commit it, see what we get. All right, so it fills up that space. It doesn't overlap the lines, and I like that better. If it was too big and it did overlap the lines, we would just punch in some numbers lower, keep playing with it until it fits just right. Same thing with the class here. If I want that to be a little bit wider, I can do that. Let's just see what 1,000 looks like with that. Cool. Let's keep it like that. Let's keep it moving. All right, so now we'll go ahead and turn the subject on. Looks good. So now, the very last folder we have here is the bottom text layers. Let's open this look up and take a look. So down here we've got sport. Just below it, I have this rip layer, change color with gradient overlay. Try to put some instructions over here. This one does not have a color overlay like everything else you've seen so far. This is an example of where I use gradient overlays to control the color, and the reason is because I want it to be slightly darker at the bottom than it is at the top. So let's go ahead and just take care of that now, and I'll demonstrate. So if you double click on the word gradient overlay, it'll pull up your layer styles window, and it will take you to the gradient overlay window. If for some reason it's on something else like inner shadow, just click on the gradient overlay line here and it'll take you there. So I want this to be white. So I have a bunch of presets saved, but in case you don't have one already, I'm going to go ahead and just go through the whole thing and show you how. So if you click here, open up this gradient editor. This is the darker color, which represents the lower portion. So I want this to be white, but I don't want to do ultra white. I'm going to keep it a little darker on the bottom. And then I'm going to click on this side and click here to open this up and get a much brighter white. In fact, I might even come back and make this just a pinch darker so you can see the gradient transition a little better. And that's it. I just changed the gradient. And this is one that I get a lot of questions on. How do you change the color of this text or the stroke outline? And it's usually a gradient, and that seems to trip some people up sometimes. So that's how you do it. It's not hard. You can play around with it. That's just a quick overview. You can find videos on YouTube galore that will really get in depth on what you can do with gradients. You know, that's the simplest form of a gradient. You can do things that make it look metallic and do all sorts of multicolors and crazy things. Really cool. But it just adds to the image. I love to use gradients. And now I'm babbling, so let's keep it moving. All right, so we changed that. I think I want to keep the sport black, but we do need to change it to say football. Now, that doesn't take up as much space as I would like it, so I think I'm going to increase the font size. Let's punch in 60 and maybe increase the width of the space in between the characters. One of these days I'm going to learn what that's called. There's some word for it. Let's hit enter. Let's bring it down a little bit. I like that. Looks good. So next, we've covered the sport. We've covered this rip layer, how to change it. You can always click on the side here, make it bigger, make it smaller, move it around. Next we have the year. This is also set to soft light, so it's very subtle. If you want it to be more bold, change it to normal right here in this window. I don't want it to be that bold though, so let's see what we can do. I'm gonna try this bright white. So because it's on soft light, it still makes it red. I don't know if I want to leave it like that or not, but I'm going to keep going and I might come back to it. But for now, yeah, let's leave it like that. All right. So obviously you can turn varsity off if that doesn't apply, or you can change it to anything that does apply. Right here in the middle of all of these text layers and talking about them, we've got this folder within a folder. It's hidden inside this bottom text layers folder, and this is a memory mate option, and I had to put it in this folder for a reason, not to hide it from you or make things complicated. But if we turn this on, I set it up where your team image that you would drop in here would be behind this rip layer, but in front of your text layers for your team name, your school name. So if you use this, you will drop your team image in here, position them. You can play with this gradient mask if you need to. But the important thing is to come below it to these two layers here for school name and team name. Select them both. Now I like to use the arrow up key, but you will want to bring this up however much you need to so that your text will show and your team doesn't cover it up. But this is the way I think it looks best if you use a team image to make it a memory mate style. Let's back up and keep going this way. So that's what that is, that's why it's there, and that's how you use it. It's pretty simple. The next one, we have the school name. This is not a gradient, it's just a solid color. It's not standing out enough, and so let's go with white. That pops. All right, so this is another one that has some things going on here. We've got strokes, we've got inner shadows, we've got a drop shadow, we've got gradient overlay. We're going to concentrate just on the stroke and the gradient overlay because that's how we're going to change the colors. So to change this inner color, it is a gradient. You see it gets dark. Well, it starts dark and it gets lighter. And so if we come over here and click on our gradient overlay, we can change that. So I think we need this to be white so that it'll stand out. So let's click here in this gradient and start with our darker color. Well, in this case it's flipped around the other way. So I could go ahead and make this the lighter color, or I could keep it the darker color and then come out and hit reverse here. But I think that's definitely too dark. Let's go right in here somewhere. Cool. I don't know, is that too bright? Maybe not. Yeah, somewhere in there. Cool, so now we've got that. So in this case we have our stroke outline, which you can come up here, or if you've already come out of it, you can double click this stroke layer here, and we can change the stroke if we want to. So in this case we've got black, we've got red, and we've got white. I think for this one I probably would leave it red. Let me just see what black looks like. Yeah, I think hit cancel. I think I'll leave it red. If I wanted to make it pop a little bit more, I can change the size. You can use this slider bar here, but I'm going to punch in 10. Alright, let's see what 12 looks like. It stands out a little bit more. Alright. That's it. We've already flew through it. So let's look at it. I'm thinking at the very bottom it's not standing out enough where it says varsity in 2019. And I'm also thinking that the background might be too dark. So I'm going to open this up, go back to the background, and just play with it a little bit and see what looks good. See if we can lighten this up a little bit. I think it looks better lighter. How light do we want to go? Yeah, I'm liking that. What if we just did all the way saturated, as bright as it goes? Yeah, I like that. I do like that. So another thing I'm noticing is these outlines here back in the back, red. I'm not sure I like that either. Let me just see what it would look like if I kept it the same, white as everything else. It's all about personal taste, but I usually do this. I'll make a decision, get to the end, and start changing things up. But I just want to see what it will look like if we go with white. Yeah, I actually think I like that better. Alright, so we've made that tweak. Let's close that, and let's come back to the bottom text. What was it? It was the year? Let's just play with that. Let's change it to normal and change the varsity to normal. See what this looks like. I like that. Alright, so ordinarily I might keep playing with this, tweaking that. But we don't need to do that here. Let's keep it short as possible. I think we've covered all of our bases. Finished this thing and realized I left out one important thing. So I'm going to cover that now and just cram it in this video wherever it fits best. So what I want to talk about or cover is this team name. And if you notice that the first character and the second character, they are bigger and they come down a little bit further, and I did that by design. But it's very easy to, when you're changing the name, to lose that, and then it's tricky to get it back. So what you'll want to do when you change your team name is with this team name layer, go ahead and double click to get it all highlighted. And let's say I wanted to change this to Raiders. So what I would do is just highlight this first character and change it. Change it to an R. Now you'll highlight all but the last, and you'll continue to type. Not lowercase. That looks weird. All right. And now you will highlight the last character and change it and commit. Now, there is another way, to start from scratch, but that'll take a little while to show you, so we won't get into that. But anyways, I didn't want to leave that out. It's very important. I want you guys to know how to handle that. And so I guess back to wherever we were. Hopefully that answers any questions that might come up, but who knows, if you run into something this video didn't cover and you have questions, shoot me an email, don@thirdcreative.com, or you can just go to the website and there's a contact option on there. Always feel free to hit me up with any questions. I always get to them as quick as I can, which isn't always quick, but I'll definitely get back to you and help you any way that I can. As always, thank you to everyone for your support, for using my templates. I hope it makes you tons of cash. And that's it. That's all I got. Time to jump into the next one. So until next time, see ya.